welcome back. Chapter 30, Simon. A nightmare woke me around 4:30 on Monday morning. I blinked against the blackness of my room trying to get the image of Kingsman's body being incinerated midair out of my head. The dream was almost worse than before because I'd gone so many nights without having it. It had come back full force in Technicolor. My mistake and the lethal consequences. Rather than try to go back to sleep, I changed into workout clothes and wandered down to the kitchen to make coffee. My shoulders, arms, hands were sore from beating the shit out of my heavy bag last night. Today, I tried outrunning my anger since I've already discovered I couldn't pound it away with my fist. Bottom line, I was pissed. Pissed at myself and pissed at Charlie. I shouldn't have pushed her and said what I said, but she shouldn't have walked away. Not so easily. Not over something like that. Yeah, I was frustrated as shit that she still wouldn't let me in, but I could be patient. Like I told her before, I was playing the long game. Somewhere along the line, I decided she was it for me. I wasn't even sure it'd been a conscious decision. It just was. She was the one. As I found my stride on the cracked and uneven pavement, I worked out my game plan. I wasn't giving up on her. I wasn't giving up on us, not without a fight. 9 hours after my unwelcome wake up call, I was finally able to escape the city council building and go after Charlie. I parked across the street from the dirty dog and hopped out of the car. Ev was behind the counter ringing up a cell. I scanned the store. No Charlie. I waited for the customer to leave before I demanded, "Where is she?" Ev, whiskey colored eyes narrowed on me. Like, really, who you think you're talking to? She ignored my question. "Something doesn't make sense here." "What do you mean?" "Khan called me this morning to tell me Charlie wouldn't be coming into work today because she was passed out cold at his place. Didn't think she'd be getting up anytime soon. And now you're here looking like a man on a mission. So what the fuck happened last night?" "Hold up, Ev. You breaking girl cold." "Shit." Visions of her walking away from me straight into Khan's arm flashed through my brain. No, she wouldn't. She probably just gotten hammered last night. That's it. That's all. And that had to mean something, right? I pictured the heavy bag I demolished. We all had our own way of dealing with shit. I tried to calm myself down. Where does Khan live? You know, if she's still there? Don't know, but he lives above Voodoo. Khan owns the whole building. She seemed to be expecting shock at her revelation, but I didn't give a fuck about Khan. I just wanted to find Charlie. Ev now? Talk too much. Supposed to be, okay. Thanks. I turned toward the door, but a nagging question forced its way to the surface. It was none of my business, but suddenly it seemed imperative that I know. I looked back at Ev and asked, "Are you and Khan still?" She fingered her necklace and looked down at the counter. "Nah, he gets bored fairly quick with just about everyone. Charlie was the exception." Ooh, Ev, shady. It wasn't the answer I wanted to hear. I drove down Canal looking for a spot in front of Voodoo, but they were all full. I parked 2 blocks away and strolled toward the shop, maneuvering through the throngs of people. Marquee in sight, I passed at the intersection and waited for traffic to clear. Dodging a taxi, I crossed and then stepped dead as soon as I hit the sidewalk. And oops. Dodging a taxi, I crossed and then stopped, dead as soon as I hit the sidewalk. A guy stumbled into me and cursed, but I couldn't hear him over the rushing blood in my ears. What the fuck? The too big man t-shirt Charlie was wearing hung off her slim shoulders. Her hair was wild and screamed, "Just been fucked." No! My brain turned to rationalization mode. She sat in my kitchen in my shirt with her crazy bedhead that morning, and nothing had happened between us. There was no reason to think. My justifications unraveled as she pressed against Khan and leaned up to kiss his cheek. He cupped her face. I wasn't close enough to see their expressions, but to me and everybody else on the street, it looked like a lover's goodbye. It wasn't. She wouldn't. He leaned down to kiss her forehead, then her cheek, and finally her lips. He held her hand as she smiled and turned to walk away. I could focus on nothing but where his fingers were laced with hers, their arms outstretched as if loathing letting each other go. His hand didn't release hers until the last possible moment. The breath in my lungs heaved out like I'd taken a solid jab to the liver. I didn't want to believe it. Didn't want to believe that she'd run back to him only hours after she walked away from me. But fuck, I was seeing it. I stood for several moments staring at the now empty sidewalk in front of Voodoo. Pedestrians streamed around me. Finally, I straightened and pulled myself together. A familiar numbness settled over me, the same one I've been forced to adopt every time we lost one of the men whose names were tattooed on my back. There wasn't time to stop and grieve in the middle of a mission, and now it was better to feel nothing than the searing burn of betrayal that bled into my veins as I tried to comprehend what I'd just seen. I needed to walk away. I wouldn't chase her down and demand an explanation. I was afraid of what I might say, afraid to give voice to my accusations. But more than that, I was afraid of how she would respond, what she would admit to. Because if what I saw was actually what it looked like, there was no going back for Charlie and me. Ooh. I stalked through the reception area and straight back towards my office without stopping to talk to anyone. Mr. Duchessness, not now. I ignored my assistant concerned look and passed my father's corner's office, which sat right next to my own. Out of habit, I scanned the interior and halted. My father was standing by the window, leaning heavily on his cane. What the hell? He should be in Maine, having surgery tomorrow, not standing in his office. Fuck. I didn't have the patience to deal with him, but he glanced over before I could retreat from the doorway. There you are. Annette said be back a half hour ago. My name is in this book. I wanted to talk to you about why the hell aren't you in Bar Harbor? My father's mouth compressed, no doubt due to the lack of deference in my tone and my abrupt question. Cricketly broke 2 fingers playing squash over the weekend, had to cancel my surgery. One of his colleagues is going to fit me in sometime next month. So your mother and I decided to postpone the trip until after the 4th. But I wanted to talk to you about... Annette interrupted him from the doorway. Mr. Dutchison, I apologize for intruding, but Mr. Jackson is on your line. He says he's returning your phone call, but only has a moment to speak with you. I didn't wait to hear my father's response. I strode into my office and shut the door. I buried myself in work until I could reassess whatever the hell I seen on the street today without wanting to hit someone, preferably Constantine Lee. Chapter 31. Charlie. I made good use of my free afternoon. First, I showered away the nastiness of last night, which was difficult considering every time I lifted my arms, my sides stretched and tugged uncomfortably. Once I was finally clean, I spent some time with Huck while I wandered around the garden oasis. He was starting to put more weight on his healing leg, and I needed to call Dr. Rich to see if that was a good thing, since he didn't whimper or yelp. I hoped it meant he wasn't pushing himself beyond his limits. Huck sat awkwardly before laying down on the grass. I sat beside him, and he lifted his head to rest on my outstretched leg. Absently stroking his thick coat, I debated what to do. I wanted to tell Simon everything now, but I couldn't. Yes, you can. Not yet. Why? Not until I had a handle on cleaning up the mess my father had made. Why? But I wouldn't give him more. But I would give him more. Me. I dropped my walls a few stories and let him at least part of the way in and hoped it'd be enough for now. He said he loved me. That meant something, and I was damn sure I loved him. But I walked away and he let me. I didn't know what the hell that meant for us. I pushed off the grass and stood. I wasn't going to waste any more time thinking about it. I was going to do something about it. I settled Huck back into his crate before heading upstairs to my tiny closet. I shoved aside my everyday casual stuff and pulled out a maxi dress. Maxi dress, you know what that do? If Simon knew anything about me at all, just wearing this would send a message, and it do. Let me stop. I was trying. I slipped into the dress and plaited my hair into a side fishtail braid. It took me forever to get my makeup right and camouflage the bruise. I thought about Ev and wondered how many bruises she covered before she stood up for herself and left her asshole of an ex. I understood how Khan had felt about the guy who attacked me. If Ev's ex ever came after her again, I'd be first in line to help bury the body. I heard the taxi honk from the street. I added go hoops, slipped my feet into wedge sandals, and threw on a thin shrug to cover my bruised arm. One last glance in the mirror told me that, with the exception of my date with Simon, I looked more put together than I had in last year. I looked up Southern Cross address in the ancient phone book stuffed in my junk drawer and hoped the office hadn't moved since the book hit doorsteps a decade ago. At times like this, I long for a smartphone. I slid into the cab and relayed my destination to the driver. We pulled up to the guard shack I recognized from Saturday night. The security guy waved us through without question, and we drove between the shipping containers and pulled up in front of a tall steel warehouse. A one-story section jutted out into the parking lot, and a sign that read "Office" hung on the brick facade. My heart rate kicked up a notch when I saw Simon's X5 parked alongside the building. I paid the driver and slid out of the cab, hoping like hell I wouldn't be walking home. Shouldering my bag, I pulled open the glass door that led into the sophisticated reception area. Twin black leather sofas lined two of the steely gray blue walls. A modern art sculpture sat encased in glass on a pedestal in the corner between them. It was ugly as hell, and in my experience, that meant it was probably expensive. A woman sat behind a sleek black desk topped with dark granite. I glanced at the closed door just beyond her, knowing I would find Simon behind it somewhere. She lifted her head and smiled up at me. Her eyes widened as she took in the tattoos peeking out from beneath my shrug. "Can I help you, ma'am?" Her smile was tight and guarded. I straightened my posture, infusing myself with impression I own this place, quality my mother had always excluded. "Please tell Simon Dutchison that Charlotte is here to see him." I had no idea why I used my real name. "'Cause you ready?" I suppose it fit better than with an attitude. My authoritative tone had the desired effect. She replied with a meek, "Yes, ma'am," and picked up the phone. "Mr. Dutchison, you have a visitor. She says her name is Charlotte." Pause. "Yes, sir, I'll tell her." "Tell me what?" If he refused to see me, I was going to... I had no idea what I would do. I hadn't planned for that contingency. She hung up the phone and stood. Fuck. Was she going to call security and have me thrown out? Instead, she gestured to one of the sofas. "Mr. Dutchison asked if you would wait. He'll be out directly." I didn't sit. The nervous energy thrumming through me made it impossible. Rather, I walked toward the sculpture and read the plaque adorning the pedestal. I didn't recognize the artist's name, but that didn't mean anything. I never enjoyed modern sculpture. Charlotte? The door must have opened on silent hinges because when I spun, Simon was standing rigidly in the doorway. My name sounded cold on his lips. His expression was completely closed off. "Simon," I stepped towards him. What are you doing here? A huge gasp came from the direction of the receptionist. Apparently, she never heard Simon use that cutting tone either. I wanted to see you. You've seen me. Oh, fuck, no. He was not going to shut me out. If this was a taste of my own medicine, it was bitter as hell. I'd like a few moments. I'd like a few minutes in private. He turned and walked through the open doorway to the inner sanctum. I took that as my cue and followed. I didn't know this Simon. He was cold, withdrawn, and kind of an asshole. I felt the hope I've been holding on to leach out of me. He stood in the doorway of the office and gestured for me to enter. I stepped inside and he shut the thick wooden door. The windows faced the Mississippi, and I could see cranes loading shipping containers onto barges, like the one we picnicked on the night before last. I wanted to go back to Saturday and redo everything so I could avoid this confrontation. Simon sprawled in his leather executive chair, but didn't indicate that I should sit as well. I sat anyway. Given his behavior, I'd be waiting forever for an invitation. He didn't speak. His hazel eyes drilled into me, chipping away my confident front. His lips pressed into a thin, flat line. I'm sorry. My apology was sincere, but didn't sound remotely humble. I had come here ready to apologize and explain to my Simon, but the man before me wasn't him. He raised an eyebrow sardonically. For what exactly? My patience ran out. Are you going to be a dick about this? Because if you are, I'll just go. My nails dug into the leather armrest, and I didn't care if I left marks. Simon straightened in his fancy-ass chair, no longer looking like an indolent jackass. That's your apology? I had a better one planned, but I didn't realize you turned into an asshole overnight. One corner of his mouth tugged upward, but he beat back the beginnings of his smile. I've never had someone tell me I'm sorry and make it sound like they were also telling me to go fuck myself. This time, the corner of my mouth tugged upwards, but I resisted the impulse as well. It was a standoff, a game of verbal and emotional chicken. For a beat, I had no idea who would swerve first. Then I decided it should be me. I'm sorry about last night. I did something kind of stupid. I would have been here sooner, but I hesitated, trying to come up with the right words to explain how I'd gone off by myself, gotten drunk, and gotten knifed. Before I could continue, his expression morphed into something hard and angry. His next words sucked the air out of my lungs. Did you fuck Con last night or this morning? Because if that's what you're going to tell me, you should get the hell out of my office. I shot out of my chair, too pissed to wince at the pain. Simon did the same, his chair toppling over from the force, his eyes blazed with accusation. Did you? He demanded. I had no idea how he knew I spent the night at Con's, but that was beside the point. The reason for Simon's personality transplant was now clear. Ev told him, girl. It sounds like you don't need an answer from me. You already decided for yourself exactly what happened. God damn it, Charlie, answer the fucking question. I almost did tell him to go fuck himself this time, but his voice wavered on the last words, and I studied his posture. His hands were fisted so tight, it looked like his knuckles might pop out of their sockets. He held himself perfectly still, as if expecting to shatter with my answer. I raised my chin and met his gaze. No, but you can go to hell for asking. I turned and reached for the door handle, intent on pulling it open. Simon's hand slapped against the wood beside my face. His knuckles were raw and split open, and I wondered what the hell he'd done last night. The thought vanished as his body surrounded me. This seemed to be a reoccurring position for us. I can feel his heart pounding against my back, the heavy thud, thud, thud matching my own. The sound of his harsh breaths echoed in the silence of the room. Don't you dare walk away from me. I memorized the wood grain of the door. Don't tell me what to do. It doesn't work out well for us. He pressed the entire length of his body against me and spoke directly into my ear. I can't watch you walk away again. Last night, it gutted me. Today, it will break me. My forehead thumped against the wall and I squeezed my eyes shut as tears threatened to spill. Once again, his honesty leveled me, demolishing my walls. I turned in the circles of his arms, the place I wanted to be, and stared up at him. His eyes were closed as if waiting for the executioner to raise his axe and swing the lethal blow. I didn't know what to say to erase the pain etched on his features, so I went with the simplest truth. It would break me too. Lowering his forehead to mine, his eyes flicked open. This was my Simon. Jesus, Charlie, you don't know what you do to me. You could destroy me. His words trailed off as he cupped the right side of my face and angled his lips to take mine. The kiss was hungry, desperate, and I opened to him as his tongue delved inside. I kissed him back with the same passion, but the entire time, his words echoed in my head. You could destroy me. It was true. I was almost thankful for the knock at the door that forced us apart. Hold on, y'all. I got a tear. That was so... Okay. I stepped out of the safest of Simon's arms to reach for a tissue out of the box on his desk. Dabbing at my tears, I tried to salvage my makeup. Given the amount of concealer staining the white tissue, I was doing a shit job of it. Simon took several deep breaths before opening the door a crack. Simon, what the hell? Open the damn door. I just got off the phone with Arthur Jackson and he's agreed to head up your campaign. He's pulling the committee documentations together and this thing will officially be off the ground. Simon let the door swing wide and an older gray-haired version of him stepped into the room, leaning on a cane. He clapped a hand on Simon's shoulders. You're going to be proud. You're going to do me proud, son. Dad, could we discuss this another time? Simon's father looked up and then around the room. His posture turned rigid when he saw me. I shifted slightly so my right side dominated his view. Well, now, aren't you going to introduce us, Simon? I'm assuming this is the friend your mother mentioned? The one you couldn't join us for supper because she had to work at, what was it? A tattoo parlor? He studied me like I was a circus freak. What was your name again? Simon's feature hardened to granite. This is Charlie, Dad. She's my girlfriend. Simon moved to stand next to me. Charlie, this is my father, Jefferson Dutchison. I held out a hand and wondered if he deigned to shake it. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. He gripped my hand for a moment before dropping it. We have important matters to discuss. If you're finished with your girlfriend, perhaps we could chat. Simon pulled me against him and I winced at the twitch in my side. Looking down at me, he stiffened and said absently to his father, I'm not actually, we can talk tomorrow. Confusion darkened Simon's expression. Reaching out a hand, he tilted my face towards him so he could see my bruises more clearly. Uh-oh. My thoughts about doing a shitty job salvaging my makeup was confirmed. Simon, this is important, his father insisted. Dad, not now. Simon's tone was implacable. His father spun, leaving the office in a huff and the door banging shut behind him. Simon exploded. What the fuck happened? Did someone hit you? His thumb skimmed my cheekbone. I made poor choices last night. What kind of poor choices? He started to wrap both arms around me, but stopped when I recoiled. Seriously, Charlie, what the fuck? I swallowed. I kind of got knifed. All of the color drained from Simon's face and his eyes flickered over me manically. Where? Jesus Christ, what the hell? He was roaring now, and I was glad the door was closed. In the quarters just off of Bourbon, I was drunk and by myself. He looked like he wanted to shake me. He gathered the skirt of my maxi dress and lifted it up. Hey, wait, shut up. I would have taken issues with his words if he hadn't dropped to his knees in front of me. He shoved the bouncing skirt into my hands. Hold this. His touch was light as he surveyed the angry red slice. I'm fine. He ignored my words. Can't do this? Of course not. No, I mean, did he glue you up? Oh, yeah, I was passed out. Don't remember anything after calling him. I hastily filled him in on the other hazy details of the night. The hurt in his eyes at not being the one I called for help was obvious. At least you had the sense to call someone. He pressed a kiss to my stomach beside the wound. I owe Khan then. After a long moment, he stood. I dropped the bouncing fabric, once again covering the evidence of my idiocy. You got knifed, but still put on a dress to come apologize? He sounded a little awed. Embarrassment flushed my cheeks. I bit my lip and stared at the ground. Yeah. He tilted my chin up again and leaned down to kiss me. Just a bearish brush of his lips across mine, and then he kissed my bruise. When he pulled away, his expression was serious. For a first fight, that was a doozy. So we're good now? I asked. Simon nodded. We're good. I guess getting knifed means no makeup sex, I asked, trying to inject some humor into the intense moment. But my statement knocked another question loose. Why did you think I had sex with Khan? Saw your goodbye on the street this afternoon. His jaw tightened. It was pretty friendly. That's because Khan is a friend. I'm not going to apologize for my history with him. You just need to get over it. Let's just say I'm still working on it. Simon threaded his fingers through mine. How do you feel about dinner? I could eat. Then let's get out of here. Don't you need to talk to your dad? No. Whatever he's got to say, we'll keep. I took a deep breath and chose my words carefully. I was going to let him in, a little, starting now. You're lucky. In the same situation, my dad would have gotten very quiet and given you this look that would have shivered your balls to raisin. And after you slunk out of his office, he would have smiled like nothing had happened. And continue on with the conversation he intended. Simon still. You've never talked about your parents before. I kept my eyes trained on the floor, terrified I was giving too much away. They're not a part of my life anymore. They're not the nicest people, especially my dad. And my mom, well, she only ever really cared about keeping up appearances. We were never close. He lifted my hand to his lips and pressed a kiss to the inside of my wrist. Thank you for telling me that. I finally met his eyes and shrugged. I'm trying. I know, and that matters a whole hell of a lot. I tugged him toward the door and needed to change the subject before I was tempted to tell him everything. Feed me. Whatever the lady wants. I smiled, but it felt forced. My confession had unsettled me. And what's more, I couldn't stop thinking about what his dad had said about Simon's campaign getting off the ground. How the hell could I stay out of the spotlight and hold on to Simon at the same time? You can't. The realist in my head whispered. The bitch was undoubtedly right, but I wasn't giving up yet. And that's the end of chapter 31. Look, I got a short minute time before my 30 minutes is up. I love this chapter. This chapter made me cry. And she on her way of telling Simon, hey, Team Simon. Oh, and my name is in the book. See y'all in the next chapter, which is chapter 32. Bye.